All right, let's get to the gym.
Yeah. Well, to talk about a part of the world that's not going to be making that sound too much in the near future, I really wanted to cover the decline that's been going on in Germany and also show an example of what not to do when you come into political power. So just to set the stage for folks who might not be familiar with it, Germany, which is for a long time has been the powerhouse of Europe throughout all of this decline over the past few years, has now really been hit. Since 2018, there has been significant decline in German GDP. Their industrial output, especially in manufacturing, has been steadily declining as well. And for a country that depends so much on manufacturing and on exports, this is very, very significant. Now, obviously, a large part of this has to do with the international climate through Trump's trade wars and Brexit. But you also start to see that this real significant German aversion, and specifically the aversion of Merkel, to pursuing any kind of fiscal stimulus, if it means that there's going to be any need to borrow money, is starting to really hit them. And where you can see this so significantly is in this really sad, honestly, it's just sad, green plan that they just passed through. So Germany has made, commitments to change their energy policy, but they're really doing it in the wrong ways. Exactly the kind of thing that when we talk about why Bernie Sanders' Green New Deal is so important and so powerful, this is exactly the wrong kind of Green New Deal. So what it's done is it significantly increased the cost of electricity, which means that working class people are, overly burdened with it. It also hurts businesses, too, because they're having to pay for significant amounts of money. To pay for their electric bills. And at the same time, they're moving away from coal and from nuclear, and the workers in those industries aren't having the benefit of a just transition. So people are, losing their jobs from this transition. So recently they just passed a new $60 billion climate plan. And of course, this deal is balanced throughout, meaning that they're not going to borrow any money, even though in Europe they could virtually borrow money from the ECB for free, because the interest rates are so low. So everything that's going to go on is there's going to be higher taxes on fuel, and there's going to be some tax credits if you start to transition over to having an electric vehicle. Germany still is predominantly not only do they use fossil fuels, they predominantly use diesel for a lot of their cars. So there's a real cultural aversion so far to electric cars there. Now, it's also trying to use incentives to encourage a slow green transition. And the reason that they can't do anything bold is because of this desire to be budget neutral. But even in its most, even when they're trying to sell this plan, it's really timid. Germany only plans to get out of coal production by 2037. Obviously, that's way too far down the line. And this has a really significant effect when you see the massive climate protests that happened in Germany recently. In fact, a poll just came out in Germany that 63% of Germans support climate policy, even if it comes at an economic loss for their society. I mean, people, well, because people recognize how serious this situation is. And, a big part of this, of course, is carbon pricing, which we really need to move away from. Basically, we have a crisis that's been created by the market. And this idea that we're going to be able to create a new market that's going to be able to incentivize it outside of the climate crisis is absolutely wrong. And this is why this is so dangerous, is because what you've seen in Germany over the past few years is the rise of the far right. In recent state elections, the AfD had significant gains. And what happens when you start putting environmental policy on the backs of working class people, they rebel and they try to vote for somebody who's going to punish the people in power. And when that vote is going to a very dangerous right-wing party, you are in absolute trouble, especially when there is so much political will in the country to go forward with a much larger and more powerful and more significant green plan. This is why, not only do we need to advocate for a Green New Deal in the United States, but as the international left, we really need to be making sure that we're using this opportunity that we have to reorient our economy away from fossil fuels as a way to create a just transition that radically redistributes wealth in society and have an upfront benefit for workers. For the people in Germany who are struggling right now and are looking towards these right-wing parties, you can give them a policy plan that gives them good jobs, that gives them higher wages, and that helps them transform the country, rather than doing this plan, which is just making people have to pay more, already people who are struggling to get by in the first place, and then they start to resent you for it, and it is absolutely the thing that we do not want to see at all going forward.
100%.
And just so people understand the global importance
this
of
is Bloomberg Macronism of green, which will destroy it. It won't solve the problem, and it will feed the political projects of the Bannons, Bolsonaro, Trumps, and other thugs of the world.
Exactly. And there's a far-right movement.
And the AFD in Germany specifically.
Yeah, no, it's like, and there's a far-right movement all across Europe, and this kind of timid old politics just doesn't work anymore. And we really need to move away from this fantasy that we're just going to be able to have balanced budgets forever.
The safe option is not the safe option.
Yeah.
That's like the bottom line. You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.